The upcoming Arrowverse crossover is not only going to be the biggest one yet in number of episodes and number of characters, but it's also going to have the largest stakes, as it's not only like a city in the balance or a world, it's literally an infinite amount of universes that hang in the balance. But unlike every other crossover minus Crisis on Earth X, it seems like there's actually going to be character deaths in this crossover, or at least there has to be to really enhance the stakes of the crossover, and also because the original Crisis on Infinite Earths killed off a lot of characters, some of which were genuinely huge characters, including Barry Allen, aka The Flash, and Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl. Now, the upcoming crossover, I do think there will be some deaths, and in this video, I will go over every single character that's been confirmed, and go over the chances of whether or not they will die or not. I'll start with the characters who have the least chance of dying, characters who I know for a fact won't die, and then move my way up to the characters who I do think will die, or the characters who definitely will. So with that in mind, let's begin with the characters who I think have absolutely no chance of being killed off in Crisis on Infinite Earths. So here are the characters who I think have zero chance of dying in the upcoming crossover. Clark Kent from Earth 38, along with his fiancée Lois Lane from Earth 38, and their son or daughter, probably going to end up being a son named John Kent. None of them are going to die because of the upcoming TV show, which is now titled Superman and Lois, which involves these two characters raising their child, which means that these characters have absolutely no chance of dying in the upcoming crossover. And if we're sticking with the upcoming TV shows, this means that Mia Smoke and Dinah Drake are not going to die either, and if Laura Lance is appearing, which isn't confirmed yet, then she's not going to die either, because all three of these characters are already confirmed for the upcoming TV show Green Arrow and The Canary. So those are the characters we can say for sure are not going to be dying based off upcoming TV shows, but there are definitely more, such as Lex Luthor, who definitely will be appearing in the upcoming Superman and Lois TV show, not confirmed, but it would be a huge waste if he doesn't. But also, he literally just died, there's no reason they would bring him back and then kill him off again. Lena Luthor, his sister, who's going to be the villain of season 5 of Supergirl, it seems. There's no way they're going to kill her off. There's also Ryan Choi and Jim Corrigan, who are two characters who they're introducing in this crossover, and there's no reason they're going to introduce these characters, these pretty large DC characters, and kill them off in the exact same crossover they're introduced, especially Jim Corrigan, who the Spectre isn't really killable. Then there's Kate Kane, who the Batwoman just started, they're not going to kill her off. Ralph Dibny, because Sue Dearborn hasn't appeared yet, and she's not appearing until the second half of The Flash season 6, and they're confirmed to be meeting up then, so it's confirmed that Ralph Dibny is not going to be dying. And finally, Pariah, who's immortal, so isn't going to die, and Lucifer, who, if he is appearing, which is that's not 100% confirmed, then there's absolutely no way he's going to die, because he's also immortal, and if they're going to kill him off, which is, I don't think that they're ever going to do that, even on his show, it's not going to be in this crossover. Moving on to the characters who I think have a 5% chance of dying, so I would be incredibly surprised if they do, but I don't think it's completely ruled out, and it is at least a little possible. There's Lois Lane from the Smallville universe, John Diggle, Eo Barthon, Iris West, Josh Jackham, Sarah Lance, John Constantine, Zari Tomaz, Cara Danvers, John Jones, Nia Nall, Alex Danvers, Kelly Olsen, Jefferson Pierce, Nash Wells, and Bruce Wayne. None of these characters I think are going to appear, but these are characters who at least have some sort of chance, unlike the characters who have 0% chance that I mentioned earlier. There is one more character in this part of the video, and that's Barry Allen, a character who has had a lot of build-up towards his death in the Crisis. Barry Allen actually saw a lot of futures in episode 2 of The Flash season 6, and he saw billions of them. The only one where the universe survived is where he died. Whether or not he's actually going to die, or whether or not he's actually going to run into the Speed Force, or none of it is going to happen, I don't think he's going to be dying at all, because he has a TV show going forward, and there isn't really any replacement for him. If there was a Wally West who would appear a lot, it also would be the Wally West in the comics who did replace him, and not the one who didn't, who appeared a lot later, then maybe I could say quite possibly he could die. But based on what we're seeing here, it doesn't seem like it's possible for Kenan Lonsdale's Wally West to replace him as the Flash, and there isn't really any other speedster to replace him. And because of this, because of the fact that his death in the Crisis, it seems like it can be avoided, even if he saw those futures. I think it is avoidable, especially since Oliver Queen has the big sacrifice. I don't think Barry Allen is going to die, but there is still a 5% chance that he does. This does mean that, like, no Supergirl characters are going to be killed off. Some of them are in the 0 category, some of them are in the 5% category, and that's just because Supergirl just never kills off their characters. They've literally never done it before, and while this would be a good time to start with the Crisis, I have a feeling that they're not going to kill off a single Supergirl character in the upcoming crossover. Anyway, from here on out, I'm going to go, like, basically character by character, because there aren't a lot of characters from here on out that have the same percentage, while the 0% and the 5% had a lot of characters. Anyway, let's start with Clark Kent from the Smallville universe, who I think has a 10% chance of dying in the upcoming crossover. Because of the Superman TV show coming up, and because it doesn't seem the Tom Welling or Brandon Routh versions are appearing, there is a chance that either of them will die, even though none of the Superman did die in the original Crisis. Now, for the Smallville universe, I think because of how beloved it is, I highly doubt they're going to kill them off, or they're going to kill the universe, unlike the Brandon Routh universe. However, I think there is still a chance that they might, and it would be a crazy twist. Jonah Hex, I think, has a 15% chance of dying in the upcoming crossover. This is a character who has not really appeared very much in the Arrowverse since Legend of Tomorrow Season 1 and 2 and then 3, as he didn't appear in Season 4 at all, and now they're bringing him back for just the crossover. It doesn't seem like they're going to be using him at all going forward, and while it would be cool to see him reappear after this, it is possible that he will be killed off in the original Crisis. At least it's more possible than the characters, or all the characters we've gone over so far. Jay Garrick, I think, has a 20% chance of being killed off in the upcoming crossover. John Wesley Shipp is appearing. It's not confirmed if he's appearing as Jay Garrick or Barry Allen from Earth 90, and for the purposes of this video, I'll just assume that he's appearing as both. And while I don't think that Jay Garrick is as likely to die as the Barry Allen from Earth 90, hence him being lower in this video, he still has a bigger chance of dying than all the characters we've gone over so far, because his recent retirement, while it would be really dark and sad for him to die, just as he's just coming out of retirement for one more mission, it would also be incredibly emotional, and it would be a fitting end to the character. So I do think Jay Garrick has a chance, not a large chance, like a 20% chance, of dying in the upcoming crossover. Similarly to Jay Garrick, with the whole retirement from superheroics thing, and then coming back just for the Crisis, Cisco Ramon, I do think, has a chance of dying in the upcoming Crisis, because of the fact that he got rid of his powers, because like Jay Garrick, he's just retired from heroics, and he's seeming like he's living a good life now. It seems like that might gear him up to actually die, because there's not really much left to do with the character. There isn't really much character development left. He's basically complete at this point. I don't think there's any much left to do, and honestly, since season 3 this has been the case. Season 5 they did something with the character with the metahuman cure, but honestly it's a storyline that I didn't really like, and it seems like based off the Crisis, based off what Barry Allen saw in episode 2, they're kind of reversing that, as Cisco is getting his powers back, or at least becoming Vibe again. Because of this, because of the storylines he's out of until this point, I think either Cisco has a chance of being killed off, even though he is a fan favorite, and it would be very sad, and I feel like people would be angry. I think that it is kind of the right thing to do, as there isn't really much left to do with the character. He can either die or leave Central City and Star Labs with his girlfriend, but I do think that there is a chance, not a large chance, again, like a 1 in 4 chance of Cisco dying in the upcoming Crisis. Just like Cisco, Lyla Michael, I think, has like a 25% chance of dying in the upcoming Crisis, as she did have a large role in the original Crisis, and she didn't die in that original Crisis. They might be changing things up here, as she had a very different role in the Arrowverse compared to the Crisis, and while her death in the Crisis would not have been emotional at all, or even meaningful, as they just introduced her there, Lyla Michaels in the Arrowverse is a completely different story, as she is a character completely independent of the Crisis before it was announced. So I think that her death will be a lot more emotional, but also in the flash forward she's not around, which technically isn't a part of the timeline, but still she isn't around in that timeline. Also, John Stewart becoming Green Lantern, or John Diggle becoming John Stewart and becoming Green Lantern would be a lot easier if Lyla Michaels did die. What I mean is like being a part of the storyline, but also if she doesn't die, then she probably would have to appear in the upcoming TV show Green Arrow and the Canaries, which could be cool, but I do think she does have a chance of dying. Again, I think it's likely she won't, but there is still a chance. Another member of Team Flash who I think has a high chance of being killed off is Frost. Whether this means that Caitlin Snow will survive but Frost dies, or both of them die at the same time, I don't know. And again, I don't think it's likely because I think that there's only a 35% chance of being killed off, but I do think that they have a chance, as the recent storyline of Frost taking over Caitlin's life, being the main person in charge of their body, and then being the only person with screen time at this point. Maybe this is her final storyline. Maybe they're gearing her up to be more of a character, so that Frost dying is actually more emotional. Again, whether or not meaning that Frost will die or both Caitlin and Frost will die at the same time, I don't know, but I'm not going to count them as two different characters here, so I do think they both have a 35% chance of being killed off, and the recent storyline in The Flash Season 6 might point to that. Another character who I think could be killed off is Helena Kyle, a character who actually was a part of the original Crisis and was killed in the original Crisis. It is possible that the same thing will be happening here, as maybe either her entire universe, the Birds of Prey universe, will die, as out of all the TV shows and movie universes that are appearing, Birds of Prey is like one of the less popular, so it would be a good candidate for being destroyed in the upcoming crossover and not being combined or not surviving at all. And even if Helena Kyle does survive the destruction of her universe, I think it's likely, like in the comics, that she will die either way. I mean, in the comics, Helena Kyle, the daughter of Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle from Earth 2, survived the combination of her universe into Earth 1, as she was no longer the main character, or the main Helena, or the main Huntress in the new Earth. However, she did not survive the war with the AntiMonitor and the Shadow Demon, so maybe the same thing will be happening here. Similarly to Helena Kyle, Barry Allen from the Earth 90 universe is also a candidate for being killed off, as he was also from a TV show from like 20 years ago that isn't exactly popular and only had one season, but is a part of the crossover. This is a character who appeared in Elseworlds. He disappeared and vanished, and he never returned, never even been mentioned since, but I do think he's returning in this crossover, as John Ridley's ship is appearing, probably as Jay Garrick, but I'm guessing also as Barry Allen. And while Jay Garrick has a chance of dying, I think Barry Allen from Earth 90 has a much larger chance, and I'll say he has like maybe a 50% chance of dying in the crossover. So now we get to the characters who I think that I would honestly be surprised if they don't die, characters who have above 50% chance of dying in the crossover, starting with the Monitor. The Monitor, we actually saw him in the flash forwards in Season 7 as he took Felicity to wherever Oliver was or something. Now this is no longer the actual timeline, so it all might be different, and I really hope it is, because if Oliver doesn't die in the crossover, then honestly that would probably be very anticlimactic, and if the Monitor doesn't die, then that would be a comic inaccurate, which it wouldn't be a problem. I wouldn't mind if the Monitor does survive, but in the comics, in the original Crisis, the AntiMonitor used the Harbinger, or Lyla Michael, to kill the Monitor. He basically used her as a puppet, and the Monitor died. The same thing could happen here with Lyla or without, it doesn't matter, but I do think it is very likely and possible that the Monitor will die in the upcoming crossover, and considering I think how much better he is as a character in the Arrowverse compared to the comics, it might even be a little bit emotional and sad when the Monitor dies, which it wasn't really in the comics because of how little appearances he had and how I think he was less cool in the actual comics. Mick Rory, aka Heatwave, I think also has a 60% chance of dying. The actor Dominic Purcell posted a picture of like some sort of trivia about Heatwave, and the caption on the post says, "It's been cool playing him." The phrasing of this shows that he probably isn't playing the character anymore, and since Crisis has been recently shot, I do think that it's likely that Mick Rory actually dies in the Crisis, and Dominic Purcell knows this. He knows that he's not going to play the character anymore, and he's posting on Instagram, basically spoiling this. The reason he's so much lower in this video, not like 100%, but only 60%, is because this isn't confirmation, and there's no real way of knowing if it's in the Crisis, and while I think it would be fitting, and I think that it would actually make a lot of sense if Mick Rory does die in the actual Crisis, there is really no way of knowing, so he's only going to be at 60%, considering also Legend of Tomorrow is going forward after the crossover, and also he's like one of the only DC characters left from that show. I think while it's likely, it's not 100% that he's going to be killed off. Rene Ramirez is the character who I would be pretty damn surprised if he doesn't die, and I would say he has a 75% chance of being killed off. This is a character who's really the only character from Arrow who doesn't seem to be having any role in the Green Arrow and the Canaries TV show. It's possible he will be appearing, but honestly, if he was appearing, it's likely that he would be on the poster art. But out of all the characters from Arrow who either don't leave or have their own storyline or go to some sort of other place, he's the only character who doesn't seem to be appearing, and that's not counting the other Flash Forward characters, but they're not confirmed for the crossover just yet. But Rene Ramirez, I think, does have a very high chance of dying in the crossover. He is alive in the Flash Forwards, but those are not a part of the timeline anymore. Those are from an alternate future. So I think that in this timeline, Rene Ramirez is most likely going to die, and we'll just have to wait for the crisis to see if he does, but I would be surprised if he doesn't. Brandon Routh's Superman is a character who I would, again, be very surprised if he doesn't die in the upcoming crisis because of the upcoming Superman TV show where he doesn't seem to be appearing, and because he's not exactly from a beloved universe unlike the Smallville version of Superman. He's a character who I think has a likelihood of dying, while his Crisis on Infinite Earths counterpart, the Earth 2 version of Superman, didn't die, and also survived the, not destruction, just like Helena Kyle, but the combination of his universe, where he was no longer the main version of Superman. He did survive this, and the same thing might happen for Brandon Routh's Superman, but considering he doesn't seem like he's appearing in the upcoming Superman TV show, and considering it would be a waste if they don't kill off his universe, as it's a universe that isn't exactly popular, I don't think there would be many people that would be angry with its destruction. I think that he might be dying in this crossover, all things considering, because his universe is going to die, probably, and then he won't appear in the Superman TV show, so there isn't really much else to do with the character, so I think there's maybe like an 80% chance they'll kill him in the crisis. It seems like Brandon Routh might be being killed off a lot in this crossover, as Ray Palmer has like a 95% chance of dying. This is a character who has been on Legends of Tomorrow for a while and is one of the only characters left on that show who's a DC character. However, he has been confirmed to leave, and while he does seemingly have a very large role in the crisis, it is likely that him leaving the show is through his death. Not to mention that Ryan Choi is debuting in the crossover, and that would be a good time for him to die so that Ryan Choi can take over as the Atom. So Ray Palmer, a character I would be very, very surprised isn't killed off in this crisis, will probably die. So now we get to Oliver Queen, basically the poster child for dying in the crisis, even though it was only the Earth 2 version of Oliver Queen who died in the original crisis, and it was really the Flash and Supergirl who were the big deaths of the crisis, along with all these other universes. In this crisis, I don't think the Flash or Supergirl will be dying, but Oliver Queen will, because of all the setup to his death in the crisis, because of the fact that he seems like he's dead in the future in the Flash Forwards. Again, not the current timeline, so things might be different. But I think that because of all the build-up, it would be very anticlimactic if he doesn't die. His death in the crisis would be incredibly emotional, and just like Ray Palmer, and less so Clark Kent and Rene Ramirez, this is a character that I think I would be very surprised if he doesn't die in the crisis, even if he goes to wherever Felicity went to in the Flash Forwards in the end of the Flash of Arrow Season 7, it might be counted as a death, I don't know, but I do think that Oliver Queen has a 95% chance of dying in the crossover, and I don't say 100, because there is a chance, a very small chance, that he won't die. That brings me to the characters who I think have a 100% chance of dying in the upcoming crisis. These are characters who either have basically been confirmed to die, or I would honestly bet money on how sure I am they're going to die in the crisis, starting with Robert Wuhl, whoever he's playing, seemingly himself from an alternate universe. I think that he will be one of the characters who just looks up at the sky in some sort of montage as his universe dies. Along with him, Burt Ward will do the same thing. He has a 100% chance of dying. Also, Earth 9 versions of the Titans characters, if those are characters who are appearing, their scene that's been leaked or been mentioned up until this point is a scene where they look up at the sky and their Earth is destroyed. So those are characters who all will have a 100% chance of dying in the upcoming crisis. Finally, the Shadow Demons will all be destroyed, and the AntiMonitor, there's no way he will not die in this crisis. While the Monitor might survive his brother, the AntiMonitor, there is no way, as they're in this universe, it doesn't seem, in this multiverse, it doesn't seem to be a way to stop him without without killing him. And while he didn't really die in the original Crisis, he was only like destroyed, and he was changed into some sort of energy form, and then the Earth 2 version of Superman punched him, and then he was destroyed, but he did come back later. I think maybe in this version of the universe, in this version of the events, they might simplify it down a little bit so that he does actually die. And considering, unlike the comics, it doesn't seem like there's really any opportunity for him to return in the future, I do think there's a 100% chance for the Anti-Monitor to die. So one last thing I want to talk about are the characters who I think should die in the crossover, and when I say that I mean characters who I think should die regardless of whether or not I think they will, and regardless of whether or not it would affect the show that they're on, or whether or not it's possible. The only character who I think shouldn't die because of their show is Barry Allen, because I want to see more of the Flash as a TV show, and I think there's more to do with the character, and I don't think there's anybody really to replace him. However, for everything else, I think there are certain characters who I do think should die regardless of whether or not I think they will, including Oliver Queen, Rene Ramirez, Ray Palmer, Mick Rory, Helena Kyle, Frost, Kara Danvers, Nia Nal, Barry Allen from Earth 90, Clark Kent from the Superman Returns universe, and finally the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor. Those should be the casualties of the Crisis. Maybe there are certain other characters from other shows or other minor characters who die, but in terms of the major characters in the Arrowverse, those should be all of the main casualties, not including any other universe that is completely destroyed. So those are my Crisis on Infinite Earths death predictions. Let me know what you would change about this, and let me know how you think the chance... So those are my Crisis on Infinite Earths death predictions. Let me know what you would change about this video or this list, and let me know which characters you think are most likely to either die or survive the upcoming Crisis. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.